Good morning, church. Great to be here. My name's Dylan and here for a very special conversation today that I am very excited about because I have a very special guest with me today on The Rock Live. It is my mum, Diane.
Hi, Rock. It's good to be here.
Thank you for being here, Mum.
That's okay.
It's very exciting. And today we're going to be having a great conversation, which I hope you really enjoy. And we're having these conversations all the time on The Rock Live as we're trying to understand what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, and then what we do with that as a part of our new series, Stop Pretending, Getting Real with Ourselves. So today, Mum and I, we're going to have a great conversation. Mum, you have an amazing story and we're going to have a bit of a chat. So thank you for being prepared to chat with me.
Yeah, that's all good.
It's a bit different to us just chatting at your house, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. Knowing there's cameras.
Yeah, there's more cameras than at your house, that's for sure. Right. Well, thanks for doing this, Mum. So part of the reason I asked you to do this is because we've been talking at the moment about kind of understanding your family of origin and understanding how the past impacts the future. And part of the reason I wanted to chat with you is because by unpacking this stuff, I've actually come to appreciate you and Dad more and more because all throughout my childhood, I felt like you would always tell me little bits about your childhood and about your life and different things. And I think I've been particularly blown away by how much work you and Dad have done in your lives to be more mature so that you could probably be the parents that we needed to be. And that we needed you to be, meaning me and my sister. So I think I was just really impacted by that, and I was quite excited to chat to you and hear a bit more about your story and I guess how you have learnt to kind of understand the past's impact on the future and how you've dealt with it. But tell me a little bit about growing up. So I know a bit, but so you grew up in Sydney?
Yeah, I grew up in Sydney. My parents divorced actually when I was young, so only 8. So for most of growing up, it was just my mum and my sister and I, so the three of us. But we had a lot of fun. My sister loved animals and was always bringing animals.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, bringing animals home from the pet shops.
Like what kind of animals?
We had mice and we had guinea pigs and at one stage we had a sheep which turned into a ram.
What, like you didn't know it was a dude?
No. Mum had to hang out the washing with like a wooden peg box behind her butt so that the ram wouldn't, got a bit vicious. So we had some fun times, and my grandparents had a beach house, holiday house. So there's lots of good memories from going there, like with extended family.
So for you, growing up with your sister and your mum, and not so much with the dad, what were the blessings of like what you've picked up from your family? Like if you look back on who you are today, what are some of the great things that you picked up from your mum and your childhood in who you are?
Well, I think family, because like we were pretty tight, the three of us, and we still are to this day. Just the importance of family, I think, and having each other, respecting each other, looking out for each other. Yeah, that was pretty strong.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because I think like one of the things we talk about is like really like as far as families go, like we are impacted by our families like even like hundreds of years ago, like because like all the things that we experience like shape who we are and then shape who we are as parents and then as kids and stuff like that. So we kind of see it as almost like you're standing on the shoulders of your parents. So it's not necessarily like you're like, oh man, mum like stuffed up or like it's not like that. No. But like even like for me, when I think back on you and Dad and my childhood, it was great. But without a doubt, because you're not perfect, there are things.
There are plenty of mistakes.
So there are definitely now things I do, because of that. So whenever I commit a lot of arson or graffiti, it's all your fault. So, so I guess it's always interesting to kind of think about that kind of stuff. And one of the things that we've been kind of unpacking a little bit at church is, what were kind of the, I guess, unspoken rules growing up. And like, because I think, we had some too. But like for you as a kid, were there things that you picked up or learnt about life? Like, like things like conflict or relationships? What did that kind of stuff look like in your house?
I can't remember specifically, like addressing conflict. I can't recall that being a thing, so I don't know if that's right or wrong. I think for me, an unspoken thing was probably because we were like a divorced family as such, and that was sort of back in the 60s, I guess, when I was little. So that was rare. Like, it's not rare nowadays, but then it was. Yeah, and I can remember, missing out on being invited to things because my parents were divorced. So there was a bit of a stigma attached to that. So I think because of that, there was, and this is probably just something I put on myself, like I don't think it came from my family at all, but just to want to do the right thing and be seen to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I had a very strong, like, not wanting to let my mum down, I think, because being a single parent in those days was really hard. Like, there wasn't any, sort of Centrelink or any financial support, and so she had to go out to work to support my sister and I. Not that she ever said anything, but I think for me, it was just a sense of, well, it's my responsibility to respond to that, by
so
helping and doing the right thing. Yeah.
So, like, when you're at school and you're at places, you're thinking about that you're representing the family and you're representing your mum and stuff? Or?
I was always very responsible. Even when I was little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you, because obviously, like, so much of kind of what we've been unpacking, it's about, like, how did you figure that, like, how did you figure out that that's what you were doing? Because it's not like when you're 16, you're going, I am doing Girl Guides to uphold the honour of my family. Like, how did you figure out that that was something that happened?
So when did it become like a conscious?
Yeah, like when were you able to reflect on it? How were you able to reflect on it?
I suppose that came much later in life when I started to do some sort of recovery courses and, look at family of origin, look at patterns and where do those patterns emerge. And so it was probably, as a much older person.
Well, sometimes it takes time, doesn't it? And, like, unless you'd, well, so, like we kind of keep talking about, like, you can be in church for a long time and you can know God, but that doesn't mean you've worked out that stuff about yourself, and you kind of, your spirituality is kind of limited by not doing that work. But it's hard unless you have an experience where you get to kind of figure it out, I guess. So being, like, it was the three of you, that was the family thing, without kind of, I don't know, like, what was that like? Just you three girls?
Well, I guess that was mostly just what I knew, because I was still quite young, I guess, sort of the last time I saw my father. So, some of the memories are a bit sort of blurred around that. So I guess it's, but then, like, my sister's 6 years older and she sort of started dating young as well. So I guess then for a period, really it was just mum and I. And my sister married young as well. I think she was 19 when she got married. So.
So were there, like, obviously kind of what you were saying before, but, like, were there unhealthy things in your maturity? Like, were there unhealthy emotional things that you did as a young person, or in those situations?
I think in terms of family, I think I took on, and again, this isn't, Mum didn't put this on me. It was just something I took on myself, but I had a very strong sense of protecting her, which is crazy because she's a very strong, resilient woman. And so not vulnerable in any way.
She watches like R-rated movies.
Yeah, I don't watch.
Unlike you.
I don't watch what she watches. She's a very strong person. So I don't know why I thought that I needed to do that or how that would be helpful or whatever. But there are, I can still remember certain instances where I've sort of went into bat for her. So, it's an interesting.
So why do you think you felt that? Was it because of your understanding of your dad or men, or?
No, I think it's more sort of who I am, maybe, because I'm that sort of, responsible, wanting to do the right thing. Helping is very strong for me. So I think I thought I was and doing the right thing. We're back to that again, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, totally. So what, like, because obviously I found it interesting because as a kid, it took a while before I kind of realised that you didn't know your dad. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't really think about it. You're like, well, there was a grandpa, like grandma's the following husband. Like, so how old were you when Dad left the picture, and what was that like?
Well, as I recall, I don't know if this is historically accurate, but as I recall, I have it as a memory at sitting around 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to visit my dad, probably, like weekend visits. I don't know how often it was, whether it was weekly, fortnightly, I can't remember. But he lived like with his mum, so my nana. So when I went to visit, I would visit at my nana's.
Yeah.
And one visit I came home and just told my mum that I wasn't going back. Yeah. So mum doesn't know and I don't know why that is or what prompted that. Like it could be just as simple as, like I remember when my dad left, he took all our furniture, so he left mum with nothing in the house. And we had a mauve couch.
Oh, mauve.
Yeah, or purple, whatever it was, in the 60s. And when I went to visit at Nana's, she had the couch. And I remember thinking, I just remember thinking at that time, why does Nana have
as an
couch?
8-year-old especially, that's very confusing.
Yeah, so I obviously had, a strong sense of justice and, so I don't know whether, they might have said something about mum, whether it was the couch, whether I didn't feel safe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, it's a pretty big decision to make as an 8-year-old.
Was your dad a dangerous person or?
He had mental health issues.
Yeah.
So he, I was never at risk, really. And I don't understand, because I was little, I don't understand all around that. But he certainly had mental health issues which impacted who he was. So he could be unstable at times, for sure,
So he kind of literally just one day you just came home and he was gone and just everything in your house was gone?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So how do you, I can't even imagine, how does that shape how you see, guys or men or, what's it like not having a dad?
Well, not having a dad, I suppose growing up I didn't really realise.
Yeah.
I think it hit me more like when my daughter turned 8 and I looked at her with her father. I think it was sort of like a aha moment. I was sort of like, whoa, I could see what he was providing in her life and what she needed. And so I didn't have that. So that was hard. I think too, it leaves a gap in terms of relating to males because I didn't have brothers and I went to a girls' high school.
Yeah.
I did have an uncle, but unfortunately they lived away at the time. They weren't in Sydney. So, even though I had a good relationship with him, it was sort of distant. Yeah, so I think there was some learning for me to do just in sort of relating to males, just as, people.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so how did your, not having a dad, how did that impact your future or your relationship with God?
Yeah, well, I became a Christian after a divorce.
Yeah.
So I married in my early 20s and the marriage wasn't very successful.
Which, to be honest, I'm thankful for because otherwise I wouldn't be here. So.
Yeah, there you go. All things work together for good. So through that, after the divorce, that's sort of when I became a Christian. Sorry, what was the question?
That's fine. I was just asking, how did it impact your understanding of God?
Yes, yeah. So becoming a Christian, I was hungry for that. I think I was at a place where I needed it because my life. So your father will back me up on this one. I'm a control freak. And so like life was in control and whatever, and then through a divorce, like everything just goes to custard, and like all your, your friendships can alter. Like it can be quite a lonely place to be. So in that respect, it was difficult. So I was kind of at the end of myself. So it was a great place, to meet God and become a Christian. And so that was, fantastic. And in terms of accepting Jesus, and that was all fine. But the whole God the Father thing was probably more of an issue for me.
Yeah. So you're like Jesus' best mate, saviour. That was easy.
The brother I never had.
Yeah. But God as a father figure.
Yeah, because I had nothing to base it. Like I think a lot of people, and I've heard people say that, like they have a negative view of God, but that's because they're relating that. If they have a negative relationship with their earthly father, whereas I didn't have one that I could remember at all. So it was really hard. Excuse me. What does God, how does that work? What does God the Father look like? Yeah.
So so obviously at a certain point, because obviously you're talking about it now, you obviously came to understand that was impacting you.
Yeah.
Like how did you come to realise that?
I'm not sure I can think of a specific point. It was probably more an ongoing thing, and different circumstances. And I remember hearing some teaching at a church camp about fathers and what they impart into their children, which is like security and identity. And so obviously I had some issues there, like insecurity's been huge for me. So that was something I needed to work through. And then other situations I just sort of bump up against. I had no choice but to sort of self-reflect, I guess, and try and look at that and work through it to some extent. So just that whole journey of finding my identity in God and coming to know myself as His daughter, and believing what He says about me and who I am, and all that stuff was really freeing and healing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because I find it interesting, because like we were kind of saying about earlier, like you can be a Christian your whole life, but that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean that some of that stuff is easy, like until you kind of do the work and figure it out. And I remember you were telling me the other day about some of the kind of, like you would do particular things to kind of try and rewire that way that you saw yourself. Is that right?
Well, I guess it's that verse, isn't it, about being transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
So I tried to do that practically, and I knew, it would be an ongoing process. Like it wasn't just going to be like a quick fix.
Shame, but...
Yeah. So then I had to sort of, I guess, train myself in a way to sort of stand when the doubts came. And so one practical thing I did was I just put together a scrapbook, and in that scrapbook were all sort of affirmations and things God said about me, even like a card, that someone had written me of, that addressed who I was and, my identity and that sort of thing. I had Bible verses. I had a list, what I called depression busters. And I used to just read them out aloud. So that's just a practical way, I suppose, of just equipping myself for when those doubts come, and training my mind on the truth, which is what God says about me. Yeah.
And so, like, then, like, because obviously the lack of a relationship with your dad, like, impacted how you saw God. But how did you come to, I don't know, do you feel like you have closure with your dad? Like, do you
So,
know what I
like,
mean?
with my earthly...
Yeah, with your earthly dad, like, how did you come to resolve those feelings? Because it didn't just impact you, how you saw God, it just impacted you as a person.
Yeah.
How did you come to kind of unpack and deal with some
Well,
of that stuff?
it's at some stage actually sat down and wrote to my father.
Yeah.
And like I
How old were you?
posted it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you guys would have been born, I think, so I would have been in my 30s.
And had you seen him at all since 8 to 30s?
Oh, just I think randomly on the streets of Sydney.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but
But you never had a meeting with him.
No.
He never come to see you. Or,
no,
Yeah.
no.
So yeah.
But yeah, I sent a letter. For me, it was a letter of closure. Like, I don't know if he got it. I don't know how he felt about it. But it was sort of like, it was more or less saying that I didn't hold anything against him. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So yeah, that was closure for me. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome, Mum.
Yeah.
You're very brave. Would you like to see him?
It's not a huge, you know. Well, he might not be alive.
True.
Because if he is, he's 91. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's not important for me. Yeah, and also, you know, I'm mindful of my mum, and I wouldn't want to dishonour her in that either. So, yeah, it's not a regret or anything like that. Yeah, it's what it was, and like, you know, God's completely, you know, and more filled that gap. So it's not something I need to, no, I think I feel good about that. I don't have to, no, it's not, it won't, look, you know, if I get run over by a bus this afternoon, it won't be a regret.
Certainly hope not.
It won't be a regret, so, no.
Yeah. That's cool. So how did, like, obviously you were working this stuff out. Were there particular decisions you made as you and Dad became parents of such beautiful children?
Such modest children.
Yeah, exactly. So much humility. That's obviously something in my family of origin. Were there things that you just decided that you would do differently? Like,
Well, I think every parent wants to, you know, you said about the going on the shoulders of the ones before, and it's well, I can't speak for every parent, can I? Can only speak for myself.
You can speak for yourself.
But I would imagine that, you know, most parents would want to, you know, have the best for their children and have better for their children than what they had. So whether that was like a conscious thing or a subconscious thing, I don't really know. Yeah. Like, I don't know if Dad and I sat down and said,
No.
this is how we want it to look, or whether we figured it out as we went along.
I was the first kid, so maybe I was the test.
I do feel sorry for you. I think, the first kid gets it a bit harder.
There you go. To my sister Lauren, if you're watching.
Public apology.
Yeah, you can hear it right there. Well, Mum, what would you say, like, because why you're one of my heroes is because I look at, like, I used to find it crazy. Like, I saw you and Dad as like who you are today, and then you'd tell me all this stuff, and you'd be like, Dylan, you're probably at that age where I should tell you I had a divorce. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I remember being with my dad and being at the Auckland airport, and we went into the urinal and we were just having a wee, and he's like, "This is where I got saved," and I was like, "What?" Like I remember all these things about you telling me about your past, and part of it is because you can't imagine your parents be people. like it's very strange.
Or young people.
But part of it I think is amazing is like you did have a divorce, and there is a history of that in your family. And that could have happened again. Do you know what I mean? And there are different things like you didn't have a dad, you know, so that could have been different. But I feel like you made choices to be like who I needed you to be as a mum, which I think is amazing. So thank you for that.
Well, it's the God factor, I think, because I made really lousy choices, you know, as a teenager and in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So I think the choices got better after I became a Christian.
Well, that's good. So, Mum, I think you're awesome. Thank you for doing this. So I guess my question is, what advice would you have for others to be able to, you know, stop, reflect on the past, and then do something with what they discover?
I think it's worthwhile. I think it's a healthy thing to revisit your past, not, you know, for the sake of camping there. I like that Nicky Gumbel quote where he says, "Don't judge people by their past because they might not necessarily live there anymore."
Yeah, that's cool.
Which I think is really positive. But it's helpful to know because we have learned behaviours. We're all affected by our family of origin. You know, we have patterns to life. And I think if we want to make changes, we need to go back to revisit that to figure out, why we do stuff we do, why we respond like emotionally to things. So I think it's a healthy thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And what advice would you give on, do you think, how to do that?
Well, there's courses available. I think the Rock's going.
Yeah, we're doing one soon. Yeah.
They will sign up for that. And also, get good people around you. Like my pastors were really supportive of my journey as well. I think, avail yourself of what's around and be prepared to go there. It's hard, but it's worth it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
One of the things you said to me, Mum, and I think it was something someone in your life said to you at that point when you needed it, I think you were saying the other day, is, you know, like, it's great to figure it out, but then you have to walk the walk. Do you know what I mean? Like, once you figure out your stuff or your crap, you've got to do something with it.
Yeah.
But I am so thankful that you did figure stuff out, because of that, you know, it's like as a kid you get to start a race, but you get to start 100 metres further forward. And that's, you know, because of you and Dad and the choices that you've made. So I appreciate you making those.
Yeah, well, that's cool for us, so to see you 100 metres ahead. So he's hoping.
So that's awesome. So thank you, Mum, for being a part of this conversation. I'm sure everyone at home has really appreciated it, and I know I've really appreciated it. And we're chatting today, but we got to chat the other day, and which was a bit more of the unedited tears edition. But it was just really great to be able to chat and about like what I've been unpacking and what, some of your story. And so that's another thing I really encourage you, for those who are watching at home, to, if you're lucky enough to have your parents still here with you, to make some time to speak to them. But a big question to think about today is about, what is the past impact on the future in your life? What are you picking up from your school experience or your family of origin or any of those things? It's a great opportunity today, even if just for 5 minutes, to stop and go, where is some of this stuff, and to talk to your family and get to understand, because often I think the more, Mum, I get to understand some of your story, sometimes it helps me understand my story as well, which I think is really powerful. So thank you, Mum, and back to you guys.